going on. I'm on the same computer as ever. Um, and I'm trying to I want to make sure I can see everybody, even if you can't see me. Switch to desktop app. Let me see if that helps me. No. All right. It's just not going to have it tonight. Okay. So I can see you all, just so you know. And I can't see all of the guests. Jen, can you hear me?
Yeah, Trisha, I can hear you. So our guests tonight, they're attendees for now.
Okay.
Until you call the agenda item, then whenever they're ready to speak, then I'll move them up as panelists, if that's okay with you, unless you want them to be panelists already.
No, I want to see who's here, which is going to maybe be difficult under these circumstances. Oh, wait, it just popped up. All right, good. So I see all the panelists. And then in terms of that's good. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 9 committee members. That's fantastic. Okay. So if we have, do we have our guests here yet?
We do. We have Yitin Chu from Place NYC with us tonight.
Okay, very good.
And we also have our guests from the Harbor School.
All right, wonderful. So I think what I'd like to do is start with our guests from the Harbor School, and then we'll introduce those 2 items that sort of walk together. So let us, I also want to say in advance of introducing Nan, that I did have to weigh in on budget items earlier than we had hoped. The Harbor School was one of those items. Millennium was already approved. We've been advocating for the Harbor School for the addition of their aquatic, I guess you don't call it their large pool. We advocated for that a long time ago. As we know, Millennium has been approved, but the construction has stalled, and COVID has created a lot of problems with the SCA's budget. So along with making sure that Millennium's construction stays on schedule and that Trinity's construction stays on schedule, we also asked that the Harbor School be allowed to expand and made that a priority for CB1. So I want to say that in advance to the Harbor School as they come in, that you have been on our radar. We have not forgotten, and I was really happy to hear from you. So welcome. And Nan Richardson is with us, who will talk to us a little bit about what they want to do with the school and some of the challenges they've recently come upon.
Trisha, I just received an email from Nan Richardson. Unfortunately, she won't be able to join us tonight because they have another meeting to cover. We do have our other guests with us.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, there's a number of them actually.
We have someone from the Harbor School though, right?
We do.
Okay, great. Well, if you could introduce them, I can't see them. That would be great.
Sure. So we have a few number of people. We have Cass Stachelberg. I don't want to mispronounce your last name. Sorry about that. And Alex Stachelberg as well. So I'll move both of them as panelists right now. And whenever they're ready to speak.
I think they're open.
Hi, this is Cass Stachelberg. I might let my wife speak first. There are a few others of us also. We've sort of coordinated some of our comments. Do you see? Give me 1 second here. I can't see the attendees, so I'm going a little bit blind. But do you see Kelly Knight on in the attendees?
I do. She's a panelist right now.
Okay, great. And how about? I think Jeff Chederico, also the school principal, is on. Perhaps if he's joined, and Nan is now actually joined as well. So I'd like to actually speak last among the Harbor School parents. So Kelly, are you able to begin? Can you advance Kelly to a speaker? Now I can see everybody.
Kelly Knight, are you here with us? You're a panelist, so whenever you're ready to speak, you can go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello,
my name
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for saying, you've been advocating for us. I appreciate that. My name is Kelly Knight, and my daughter is Prophet Davidson. She's a senior in marine bio at Harbor. And I'm also an educator administrator. I work in downtown Manhattan at a college. And while SCA didn't want to talk about an aquatic center as part of the gymnasium or separate from one, we have pointed out to both the DOE and to our sympathetic elected officials that to expect a school to train students for a lifetime working on the water without teaching them how to swim is almost actionable. It's a safety issue, actually. And for me, it's an equity justice issue as well, because in underserved communities, specifically Black children, do not learn how to swim. So lack of access and a history of segregation in public pools can be held responsible for some of that. But that is, you have an opportunity to address this issue and provide support to maximize the tidal wave of talent that I see building in our school. We need to support our kids. Additionally, it's a jobs issue, as these waterfront, high-paying jobs demand that skill. And it just doesn't make much sense for a maritime school not to have access to a pool. Can you imagine Stuyvesant without a science center?
What were you told about the pool? Because there was space allocated for this pool. Can you share with us the challenges you came up against?
I think there's been like a ping-ponging back and forth. The space is approved, and then somebody else says it's not approved. It seems like there's two different organizations. Maybe like the Governor's Island folks say, well, no, that you can't have that building. We have one building to expand just for classroom space, but then we didn't have a building for the pool. So it seems like there's these competing ideals about what we should have. I just want to make sure, as a senior parent whose child hasn't had access to this, I mean, they had to go all the way to Bushwick for swimming lessons. And my daughter, who was on the rowing team, actually left the school rowing team because there just wasn't enough to support the rowing team. And she ended up joining a rowing club, a New York rowing club. So, I would hate to see the talent keep leaving the school because it's not properly supported.
Right.
So that's what I was told. There's competing interests, it seems.
Trish, can I ask a question?
Sure.
On Governor's Island, I remember there is a pool that just was never used. You cannot get access and have that pool fixed.
I heard it was too dilapidated and it would cost more to fix it than just to bring in, maybe something temporary, like we had explored one of those barges, the moving barge, just as something that we could have at least so the kids could, particularly the scuba kids and all the other kids could learn how to swim until we get the aquatic center, because we really need something more expansive that can accommodate research and swimming lessons. And so that's what I was told. Somebody can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. Nan would probably know, but I heard it was too dilapidated.
Sarah, this is Nan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So let me just jump in to address that question that you put initially. That pool that you referred to was an old Coast Guard pool, and it is indeed in sorry disrepair. It's also unsuitable for a real training pool because what the diving people would require is something where at least one end of it was 10 feet deep. So that pool, the trust has other plans for that. They're probably going to fill it in and build over it, but that was not ever an option. It was one that was considered and discarded early in this process. But what Kelly describes has really been our experience since coming to the island initially 13 years ago. We were told that a pool would be in the offing, I mean, the last 3 years, we've been pretty vociferous about trying to say we've been waiting for a really long time, and can't we please consider this as a key facility that the school was intended to have and that never was realized. And yes, and somehow we're between this in this strange limbo land between the trust and SCA, where we've been told at various times that yes, we could get a gymnatorium through the mayor's fund for gymnasiums, since we're a school without a gymnasium. And that then once we got that space allocated to us, that it would be up to us to raise some additional private funds to accommodate the pool. Then we were told that there was no space that the trust would make available that was sufficiently large to accommodate even a small gym. And so back and forth between the trust and SCA, with both of them saying it's the other party that is unable to allow this to move forward, which is why your intercession at this point, when the trust is about to make a very, very large and serious commitment to every piece of space on the island, is so important. The time is kind of now.
Absolutely. Can you share with us this thing you sent me today about their plans for instead putting some sort of hospitality situation there?
Well, the reason that we had focused on this space called the hospital building, which is adjacent to our school, so really cat-a-corner to our school, is that when about 18 months ago, I spoke with Lorraine Grillo, the head of SCA, and this was after the SCA had walked the island 3 times with the trust, looking at various potential spaces, and been told no to the Western Development Zone, no to anywhere in the Southern Development Zone. And in the northern area, the only building that's really large enough to accommodate a gym/aquatic training center would be the hospital building. But the hospital building on the master plan, and as you guys know better than most, that master plan is basically the same one that's been kicking around for a decade now. And that building was was listed as a hospitality venue. So they're hoping to put some kind of a hotel in there. It's a relatively big building. It's right next to Castle William. And between Castle William and that building, there's some particularly ugly sort of circa 1950, what were, I think, dormitory buildings for the Coast Guard, which I gather in the recent discussions by the trust will be removed. But that building would be ideal. And Lorraine Grillo said, get the hospital building. However, the trust has other plans for it. And yet, those buildings, as you know, too, have been sitting there for 20 years without much luck getting private developers. So, maybe that's our opportunity, but we're certainly open to other ideas if they don't want to give that one up.
Gotcha.
This is
Okay.
Wendy. Can I ask a question?
Go on, Wendy.
So I ran into Brian Kavanaugh actually, and I asked him about the PAR parents, our recent other meetings about the governor's presentation, and he wants to make this a driving issue. Have any of you touched with? He absolutely would like that. He's advocated for this for multiple, like more involved in this issue. Is that on anyone's radar screen right now? Have you heard from Brian Kavanaugh? Maybe not. Because I would say if you reach out to him, he cares about this and wants, he absolutely believes that a pool, he understands the issue and he supports the pool. And I agree with you. We've seen plans for a hotel. And the ironic part about it is the hotel is going to have a pool. But to your point, I don't know of any developer that's aimed.
Yeah, well, ironically enough, we had a lunch meeting with Brian Kavanaugh today.
Oh, great.
And he was
Okay.
wonderfully supportive, as he has been all along. In fact, 3 years ago, when we really started raising our voices about this, we did go around and we spent a lot of time with Margaret Chin, with Gail Brewer, with Brian, who's been totally supportive, as has Mrs. Chin, as has Gail Brewer, and also some, not directly related public officials such as Congressman Nadler, whose people came out and they all signed a written statement that was widely reported in the press, that was directed at the mayor, an open letter to the mayor saying that they supported the Harbor School's need for an aquatic training center. So we may have to ask them to do that again.
Well, and I think that goes hand in hand with what, to Trisha's point, we advocated for over the last couple years. And we advocated for it, and all of this was happening. And then, to your point, nothing has gone forward. And to your point, we've got to figure out, how do we get the pressure back up when budgets are so tight? But I mean, Governor's Island is working on stuff right now. This is the right time to do it.
Yeah, and our fear is that if we don't at least secure an option on some space, there won't be any space left shortly.
They keep talking about the space right across the street from, or across the way. That building is earmarked for you. I get the sense that it's a pretty traditional building, a classroom type building. Is that, I'm assuming that that's, insufficient for what you need, right?
The building, that building has a curious history. It was actually allocated to us back in 2012. And it was designed by SCA all the way through to landmarks. And it just didn't make that was the last permit that they needed. But all the permits were done, all the studies were done, the Revolutionary War sweepings for unexploded munitions were done. The design was completed and shovels were ready to go in 2014 when de Blasio took office and decided to pull that funding and put it instead in universal pre-K. So from one day to the other, Monday to a Tuesday, the building was ready to go and then was stopped. And it's still stopped. And it is a small building and not big enough. And initially what the trust said to us is, we will take money from the mayor's fund for gymnasiums, because there was $600 million put aside for schools without gymnasiums. We'll take the money for that. We'll build you a gymnasium, and the classroom building would be kind of an appendage to the gymnasium. And then it transpired that the land around that was insufficiently big to have a gymnasium built on it. So right now, that building has been sitting there ready to go now for 3 years, because they dusted off the old design plans, and yet no contract's been signed. So we are overcrowded. By the SCA's own count, we're 120% overcrowded. We want the classroom building, but it doesn't solve the gym problem. And the gym problem has not been, nobody's really engaged in it right now, like a place to put the gymnasium, which could also accommodate a pool.
I thought there was a space closer to where you currently teach the, where the scuba is, that there was space closer on that side, but it sounds like that's not the case. I'm somehow remembering that wrong.
No, they've not, the trust has not indicated that there were any available spaces over in that direction, over by the Mass Center, the east side, where the piers are going to be built out.
That was a long time ago when I must have thought about that. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so, I mean, as you know, we're completely supportive of you guys getting a pool. I mean, we've been talking about this, to Trisha's point, for years, and it's unacceptable, and it's a great school, and, I toured the school multiple times. It's a fabulous school.
So I think what we could do is, and I think we've done a resolution before, but Nan, I would like to reach out to you tomorrow and work together through the points, and gather some whereases from you. I won't do it now while we're in the meeting, but if I can reach out to you tomorrow. I've taken some notes with what you've said, but I would love to have about 10 minutes of your time so that I can develop a resolution that we can send out to the trust and the SCA and the DOE with these important points and remind them of their commitment to you back several years ago. I think that would be really useful.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure. And I think, you know, the gist of this resolution is that very thing. I'm going to get the points about how imperative it is for students to be able to swim that are in a marine program, that this was promised to their community long ago, that it should be a priority ahead of hotels and other uses. They were one of the first to go to Governor's Island. It's been an incredibly successful program. The enrollment at the school has expanded. The school itself has become stronger. Academically, they have achieved amazing things. And we need to support them. They moved the school from Brooklyn and they have yet to make it whole. And that was one of the points from moving it from Brooklyn to Governor's Island, is their access to the water. And so I think that was what our resolution will say. And I would like to, you know, move forward with the vote on that.
So hey, just one more point.
The reason basically is to try to have a balance between.
So if a hotel goes in there, is there any way we can say in the resolution something like, if a hotel goes in there, that hotel needs to make a pool that accommodates these students? You know, that it needs to be like what Stuyvesant is, you know, also a pool that the community uses after hours. Something about, you know, if a developer and a pool goes in there and that's the first pool that gets built, then that pool needs to accommodate these students until another pool can be built. You know, something like that.
Can I just, this is Andrew, can I just quickly comment on that? And I'm not sure what everyone's on this call is aware of, but over the last probably 3 months, there's been a fair amount of community engagement with Governor's Island on the proposed rezoning that they've put forward. And I mean, there's literally hundreds of pages of information on this, but to try and give you a very short summary, they've put forward a proposed rezoning of the southern portion of the island to allow for expanded permitted uses that would allow for lack of a better term, commercial development framed around a center of climate. And again, there's hundreds of pages of information and presentation that everyone can access from the Governor's Island website. The reason I'm bringing it up in the context of this discussion, Harbor School has featured somewhat prominently in the community engagement in this point about an aquatic center. And I think it's important to clarify really the role of that conversation in the context of this rezoning, because I think there's a view that's forming around the ask of the Harbor School is that if this rezoning is supported, that both facilities and funding will be provided in connection with the trust's rezoning. And almost to the point where it seems like it may take DOE off the hook of their historical representations of support to the Harbor School. So as we frame a resolution, and to Wendy's point, it kind of comes back to, if a hotel is part of this center of climate and they have a pool, is that the pool that will support or satisfy the Harbor School's aquatic center ask? I think we're blurring some lines here, and it'd be helpful to clarify that.
Yeah, I would like to hear, thank you, Andrew. That's important information about the rezoning, which is important to consider here. I'd like to hear from Nan as to whether or not, you know, the way Stuyvesant's pool is used for the community is very restricted. It is available only in the evenings. And so in terms of pedagogically, what would that look like for you? Would that be enough to help?
Well, I would like to, if you would call upon, our principal is on this call, Jeff Shitirico, and he would probably be the best person to answer that. But I would say We've always envisioned that this kind of an amenity would work best, to be practical about it, as a private public amenity where, if we had a facility like that we would share it. And we always thought of the Stuyvesant Battery Park City model as a good one. But if you could call on Jeff, maybe he can answer that more directly.
Hi, how you doing? Thank you so much. This is Jeff Shaturko, principal at Harbor School. In terms of answering that question, and just to piggyback off of what Nan's talking about, we always envisioned having a pool or space for students, in their 9th grade year to, as their gym class, be learning how to swim as a prerequisite, because we don't start our career and technical education programs, 7 of our programs, 6 of them state certified, until 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And so it would be amazing if all of our 9th graders knew how to swim coming out of 9th grade. Going back to Kelly Knight's point around equity and around students' exposure in a city who live on islands, who live surrounded by water, not having available resources to learn how to swim. We think that it's just it's really important for all of our students to come out of 9th grade, let alone graduate, knowing how to swim. For our CTE programs, they're out on the water, they're learning in vessel operations, they're professional scuba diving. Their marine biology research students are out in the water and researching the oysters that we're placing in the water. And so it's important for our students to know how to swim. And so we would probably need more access than just an after school program. We'd look to have them all day long, if possible.
Yeah.
We agree 100% that the SBA should build you a pool that's yours exclusively. What I'm afraid of is they're going to we're broke and who's going to pay for it and build it, because the recent builds have all been a development-led. A developer builds the outside of the building, and then SEA just puts the walls in and does the finishing touches. They have not built a school from scratch or a facility from scratch in a long time. They're always looking for other people to do it, to Andrew's point. And maybe it's that if this goes into the hotel, they build 2 pools and 1 pool's yours. I don't know, on the same site. I mean, I just think we need to be very aggressive about saying this new rezoning that's going to get development, hopefully, that will help our city. It's going to need a lot of help with everything, all the huge debts we have. We're going to have to be creative, because I think SEA is going to, rightly tell you that they're broke for the next 10 years. And that's not okay. You need a pool, and to Trish's point, it takes 10 years to build anything. Once we talk about it to when it's actually built, it takes forever. So I'm just trying to think creatively to get something done before then, because you need to have a pool on the island as soon as possible. Of course, I've been advocating for Plus Pool, but from what I hear from Plus Pool, the only place to put it is on the other end of the island, which is not practical on any standard. But and of course you guys have school when it's cold and you need an inside pool. So I digress, but I get a pool as soon as possible, even if it's a pop-up pool. I don't know what.
Nan,
Wendy,
chime in. Yeah, this is Cass Stackelberg. First of all, let me say how thrilled, as a parent of a student, a 10th grader at school, how thrilled I am. My wife Alex is on the call, and a number of other parents are on this call. How thrilled we are as parents hearing your really full-throated support of this effort. It's really so encouraging.
Yeah, you should know.
Wendy, you're cutting off a bit. Wendy?
So go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll just jump in. Just first did want to say thank you. And, it certainly seems like you all are very willing to support us and write in a resolution about this to sort of formalize this. I think the 2 points I wanted to make. One is the other thing that we might ask of your committee and the community board is to help get all the different players sort of at the table, because we've had independent conversations with the SCA, with DOE, We've had separate conversations with the Trust for Governor's Island, but with your assistance and advocacy, being able to get all the parties, quote unquote, in one room and one meeting to sort of talk this through, because the trust is saying they'll consider giving us a space if the SCA allots money. And then the SCA says, well, we'll give you money, but you have to tell us where this is going to go. So getting all the parties at the table, including Jeff and his amazing staff and teachers, getting representatives from Harbor, from the trust, from the SCA, and hopefully the PTA to sort of participate in that conversation with your efforts and your advocacy to make that happen would be a tremendous help, because your resolutions will help, but also actually getting the players at the table will hopefully make a big difference too. So we might ask if we're here asking for things, we might ask that you help advocate for that. And then just the other thing I thought I'd mention, you're right, a permanent pool on the island is 5 or 10 years out. And the other thing that we're looking at, as you said, is something that might be much more short term, whether it's some sort of retrofitted barge pool that could even be covered and perhaps anchored just off the island on the north side where the waters are a bit calmer. That's something that our group, the PTA, and we're talking with Jeff about that. So I think that's also part of a discussion that we'd like to have in the near term with the trust and with the SCA to move that forward, because that's something that can happen much more quickly and at a considerably smaller price tag. And that could have students in the water by next fall. So that's sort of the other thing we're considering, and sort of balancing the long-term goal of something more permanent that might benefit the school and the community, the public, and then something more short-term that could be used more quickly by the school right away.
That's a great idea.
Terrific.
Hey, that's something that, I mean, when I ran into Brian Kavanaugh, and I'm so glad you guys had lunch with him, it seems to me that that's something that, he and I'm sure some of the other electeds like Gail Brewer and others would love to coordinate with us. It seems like the right time.
It's great. Yeah, I know it seems crazy to be talking about these kinds of plans, but it feels like it's the right time. It's sort of, this is the time to plan for things and get commitments.
We do have the capacity right now because the city council awarded us and Brian Kavanaugh contributed to this with the state. So we've got almost 1.3 million sitting there for the temporary pool. The problem is always comes back then to the trust about a site to put it on. So again, the chicken and the egg. So we could have a temporary pool, which would last, for 7 or 10 years until a permanent pool could be in place. It wouldn't be ideal, but it would be a lot better than the situation now. Going to Bushwick 4 days a week with everybody in minivans.
Does that require just like a boat berth, or I mean, do you have a place that you think it should go? Or I mean, we don't know anything about putting a pool in. That's
well, we've looked into I mean, the barge idea is one idea, and then we've looked into and we priced out, and we've had so many permutations of this over the last 3 years, but we have lots and lots of bids right now on 52-foot super tanker containers that are 10 feet deep, which is the requisite depth for minimal depth for diving. That could be kitted out and delivered, and they could sit right where in front of the hospital building right now and face there. And we've measured it out, and you need 2 of them for it to work. But and then there's the barge idea, which is a little more expensive, but certainly doable.
This is not something that has to be developed ground up. These are things that exist. Barges have been converted to pools, containers have been converted to pools. They exist, and we've done some research into this. So the board doesn't need to develop the idea, but it's something we have a fair amount of information on already.
What does 1.2 get you?
It gets you 2 container pools completely kitted out for use.
So you have the funding and a design that can deliver a short-term solution.
Yes.
What do you need? What approval do you need to move
We
things
have
forward?
nowhere to put them. We have no site. That's always been the other problem. No money, no site.
So you need a temporary site to be allocated by Governor's Island.
That would help a great deal.
Okay.
And is it something that there's something on Governor's Island right now that you need to tie into, or they would have to build it, do you think?
You mean, well, I'm not sure if, are we talking about the container pool idea or the barge pool? We haven't fully explored the barge pool. If it's a barge, it's going to need to tie up to a dock. Yes.
Right, and do they have that? I just don't.
They have a number of docks. Whether we could fit something at the depth and length, we'd have to find out more about.
May I speak for a moment? Only because this was my little pet project over the summer, the barge pool. Hi, I'm Alex Stackelberg. I'm Cass Stackelberg's wife, the one was just speaking before. We are really thrilled, genuinely, that you guys are helping us. Thank you so much. But the barge pool actually exists in the Bronx, and a woman named Ann Buttenwieser is our guide, potentially, along with the diving the head of the diving program. The two of them are going to meet and talk soon to see if the two can come up with an actual plan for a barge pool that would fit exactly right where the diving system and all the aquaculture, like it's the pier that is connected to the building that does belong to the harbor school. And it's the one that happens to house all of the programs that are connected to this pool and its usage. For example, ocean technology, robotics folks, they need a pool. They go out to Brooklyn to test out their robotics in a pool in Bushwick. And if we had this at the end of the pier, down like a few steps from where they're doing their ocean technology class, it would be incredible. But also the aquaponics program, they're doing things with fish and water and systems, and the barge that we're talking about is something that could actually handle a lot of different CTEs, which is what we call these different topics or programs at the school, in one pool. So the barge is actually exciting, but I agree with Nan. I think that the container, if we're allowed to just plop down the container pools right now on the hospital parking lot area, that's really close to the school building, and it would solve our immediate needs. And I mean, I don't honestly know which would be faster. They're both fast. So
have you modeled out the cost of the barge?
Not yet, because Ann Buttenwieser and Lenny need to talk, and they are the two experts on the pool barges that we have to put together. They're both excited to talk to each other, so it's imminent. We will find that out really soon. But we know we think we can get a huge barge from the sanitation department for $1.
And did you say you put them in the water, or did you say you put them on the parking lot?
The containers are a parking lot, and the barge pool is attached to the pier that already exists, that's in a quiet, calm part of the water around the island, and it happens to be coincidentally right next to the other building that the harbor school has.
Right. So that both are good. Okay, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Tricia, given that there's an option for which there's already funding and there's a design option that works, before putting calories into a resolution, is there a play here where you call Claire Newman of the trust and ask them the possibility to allocate a site for these two containers such that the school can have them in place for the next school year?
And Tammy has been on a lot of calls with them, so you know, you Tammy calling together might make sense, because Tammy was really after them with this new what do you call it, the new zoning.
This is Nan again. Let me just interject. I think that we certainly can come back with all these plans, but it's still the most important thing, I think, is to sit down with all of the key people at the table. That's the thing that's been missing in this rubric cube certainly over the last 3 years that I've been heavily involved in it, is if we could just sit down and talk together, there are solutions that could be found and figured out. But without that conversation directly, it's pretty hard to keep coming up with these wonderful and viable ideas that only one side really buys into.
Hi, everyone. Trisha's, again, unfortunately experiencing technical issues. So I'm trying to work this out with her so she can speak and can hear her.
For some reason we can. I think that the well-defined ask of the Harbor School is that we broker a meeting between elected COE, SCA, Harbor School, Governor's Island, and whomever else, just the key stakeholders, bring them together for not a face-to-face, a Zoom call or meeting. Is that correct, Harbor School team?
Yeah, I think that would be enormously helpful.
I'd be surprised if Tricia didn't take that on with great enthusiasm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Can I interject here? And just also, I think Jeff is still on the phone, and I wonder also if you all are adopting a resolution, if there's value in also sort of formalizing the support for these facilities, but also I think Nan may have mentioned the building 555, which is the building directly in front of the current Harbor School building that's been sort of promised to the school, but nothing's happened. I wonder, Jeff, is there value to in having the committee and the board adopt a resolution to sort of to focus on classroom space as well?
I mean, I think anything would be helpful. That's been ongoing now for 3 years, and many hours spent around the table trying to negotiate the building space between SCA and the trust, and anything would be helpful at this point. Yeah. Because we still hear nothing. And of course, I understand from March on, but even before that, we weren't getting a lot of communication from SCA or from, well, the trust kept on asking us, me personally, have I heard from SCA? Have I heard from SCA about 555? And my answer was no, they haven't gotten back to me. And every time I reached out, they said, oh, we're still negotiating. We're still negotiating. So it would be very helpful to just see where we're at and what the likelihood and what the timeline is around getting that building for classroom space, because it's much needed.
Yeah.
Now, before we lose you guys, you're in terms of accepting students into your school, I know you screen for some things, but is it a total? I mean, what is your? I mean, I'm switching topics a little bit, but do you screen or do you not screen?
We totally do not screen. We did enter into a diversity plan back in 2018 that allows our incoming classes to be 69% students who qualify for free or reduced lunch to mirror the population of students around the city. So we noticed that when we came to Governor's Island, and I hate to just be looking at numbers, but the best way we can do it is by looking at Title I numbers. We were 92% of our population qualified for a Title I support, and we were a Title I school. And then when we came to Governor's Island in 2010, the pendulum began to swing in the opposite direction, and we found ourselves at 42%. And the mission of the school is to provide opportunities for students who wouldn't normally get a maritime education, especially all the money that's out there for the port and all the jobs and possibilities. So we found that it was very important to, with the Department of Education, enter into the diversity plan. And so the last 2 years, we've accepted students at about 69%, 70% free and reduced lunch. So there is no screening. We're an unscreened school, but we do save seats, 69, 70% of our students incoming to ninth grade for free or reduced lunch.
Right. Can I just say one thing? I'm a parent, Kelly Knight again, that much to some parents' dismay, we continue to be an unscreened school. And I applaud Jeff for that, and I agree with that. But we know that because of what the school offers, the demographics will continue to change. And so I think it's important now to show students that we're supporting them, not later on when the demographics continue to change. We have to support these kids now.
Mm-hmm.
So Trisha, are you able to speak? I saw you for a second.
So I think we have enough to brief Tricia on where we landed, don't we?
So, and I think she'll follow up. Oh, there she is. Maybe we can hear her.
We're happy to meet with her tomorrow or anytime she likes, also to fill her in or continue the conversation. We have a couple of little briefing papers with some of the key information too that we can share with all of you. And if anybody wants a tour of the school, besides you, Wendy, who've already been there many times, we're happy to do that, but we have to do it quickly before the numbers go up.
Right. And how about, I know for a while, I think it's resolved itself. I think there was an extra ferry that got put in, but you don't have any ferry problems now in the off season, right? Everything's fine now?
Yeah, the trust has that very new and big ferry,
Right.
but yeah, the ferries are fine.
They're great now. Okay.
Yeah. And, Jeff went to a lot of trouble too to work out a much better safety plan because, it was interesting listening to people bringing that up as a concern for the future of Governor's Island. But it took us, Amy Kotha, who's a CB1 resident and a parent at our school who couldn't be with us tonight, she's brought that up before. We were really the beta case. We were the first tenant. When we got there was no potable water. There was no internet. There was no,
I remember.
A lot of those early days were rough going. And that one of the things that Jeff worked out a couple of years ago was a really good safety plan where the police, Charlie 1, the police station now can get to the school if there's any incident with a child in under 2 minutes. And where, the ambulance is now on the island all the time. So things have really materially improved. And, and because we've been through this, I think, the Harbor School could be a big assist in Governor's Island trying to figure out the next phase of development.
Is Trish there or no?
Hi, Trisha, can you hear us? I've unmuted you.
Okay.
Trisha?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I just wanted to see, yesterday this subject was brought up in Landmark Hughes, and Patrick Cannell had said that the trust gave space for the pool, but it's up to the SCA to build. So are the two I just want to see if anybody else was on that meeting yesterday with the Landmark.
I wasn't on that meeting, but I think Patrick might have gotten confused with the classroom space, which has been said over and over again that the classroom space directly across the street from school is you know, even the trust says that's going to be an expansion space for the harbor school. But I have not heard anything in the last couple years that I've been on these calls about where the pool facility would go, you know. So that is
Correct.
So so in yesterday's meeting, he said in the land use, they did say that the pool space was, well, they said that the trust gave for the pool space and it's just up to the SCA to commit to build it.
which
I
space.
don't think that's correct. I do think you might have
Okay.
gotten it confused with the classroom expansion.
Okay. Okay. I'll double check with him.
Yeah, and you know, he hasn't done a lot of the youth and ed stuff, so he might have confused the two issues because they have two different issues and they actually want two different buildings.
Or spaces, but yes, we certainly have been told that there is no space so far for a pool or gymnasium.
Excuse me, while we have you all here, you know, we're about to discuss how things are going with hybrid schooling and in and out of classrooms. A lot of your students study things that are very hands-on. How is that working for your school?
I can take that one if it's all right. It's very difficult, not only with the fact that students, you know, because of our classroom space size, we can't fit really more than 8 students in a classroom at a single time. So many of our teachers who have 150 students, you know, can only see upwards to 40 students per day during in-person schedule time. But specifically around career and technical education programs, I told you before that we have 7 programs. 4 of those 7 program teachers are out on medical accommodations. And the biggest issue we're having right now is around teachers who are out on medical accommodations and the opportunities for students to engage in hands-on material has to happen remotely, even for the other 3, because we have to provide an equitable opportunity for students who opt into remote versus blended. For instance, we can't fully have students who are in person, strictly working in hands-on materials and working on a curriculum that our remote students don't have access to. It makes it very difficult. So we're trying to find ways, like our ocean engineering teacher is working on getting robot kits that he's going to have students pick up or deliver to their homes. So that everybody has an opportunity to do it, but it makes it very difficult because even for our 3 teachers out of the 7 programs that are able to work in person, they're only able to see a handful of students per day. And even if they see those handful of students, we're limited in what we could do with them because we don't want to show the students who are coming in person are getting, you know, a better education, a more quality education, more opportunities for hands-on learning when, you know, students who are remote for whatever, you know, for the reasons we all know, don't have those opportunities. So I tell my teachers that what you do with students in person has to be able to be mirrored and opportunities for students also to take place at home, which makes it very difficult on our. So we're trying to look at the curriculum and see what we can do right now within the state-approved curriculum that students can do at home that is less hands-on, so that when students do start coming back in full scale, they can work more in hands-on material.
So it's really tough for your scuba program, for example.
Yeah.
So that's
Can
not
you guys hear me?
Thank you.
Yes, we can.
Especially because that teacher's also
You
on
can hear
medical
me?
accommodation.
Oh, okay.
Trisha, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I just called in. It was just impossible. So I apologize to everybody. I don't know what's wrong with, there's the same computer, same platform, same everything. I'm very sorry. Thank you so much, Harbor School. I did hear everything everybody has been saying. And Andrew, you are correct. I think that since you have had this much contact with the SCA and the trust, the best next step is just for me to reach out, and I will do that. And I will reach out to both of you tomorrow just to go over the points, and then we can revisit the resolution at the next meeting.
Terrific.
Does that sound good?
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Yes, terrific.
All right, wonderful. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for their great comments.
Thanks, Paul.
And we have some time restraints, so we need to move on to our next item, but I will definitely be in touch with you both tomorrow.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all of you.
So much. Thank you for your support.
You guys to give us a presentation ready about these different that you can make out of different containers or barges. That would be amazing to come present it when you're ready for it. Obviously, sounds like it's still pretty, new.
It's definitely new, and we're very excited to present it to you when we know more. And thank you so much for your support.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good night to all.
Thank you.
So I wanted to thank you again. So I want to move to, there's 2 items we have on the agenda tonight about this mayor and the chancellor, if anybody hadn't heard, are discussing removing screens from our middle and high schools for the calendar year 2021-22. I thought this was going to be something that was happening over time. This screen decision has been with us for quite some time. For those of you who have been to the couple of town halls that have been recently held, you know what I'm talking about. And so we have tonight a representative here from Place NYC, which her name is Yia Tin-Chu, and I will let everybody speak on this issue. We also have a resolution tonight, but I want to be clear about what we're going to be discussing tonight in terms of this issue. Right now, before us and on a community level, the question that we need to respond to, as I see it, for our representing our community, is whether or not we support the idea of changing this admission process for next fall right now. I do not want to engage tonight in a conversation about the pros and cons of screen schools. It is a conversation that we will inevitably having, but I think is best had with other community boards in conjunction with our CECs and reaching out and having more of a citywide conversation since it is a citywide issue. And so with that in mind, I would like to first introduce Yia Tin, who is from Place New York City, who we would love to hear from. We'd like to hear, there's a lot of committee members. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Please correct me if I'm not. And let us know a little bit about your organization and why you've joined us tonight.
Sure. I'm trying to turn on my camera so that there's an image, and I'm not sure how to use this. I'm so used to Zoom. So if you don't mind, I think I'll just speak instead of wasting time figuring that out. Hello, everyone. My name is Yia Tin-Chu. I am co-president of Place NYC. I'm also one of the co-founders. I'm happy to be with all of you tonight to share what I know regarding the screen schools, gifted and talented programs, and if you're curious, also the specialized high schools, which are also part of the screen high schools. The Place organization was created in September of 2019, shortly after the School Diversity Advisory Group that was appointed by the mayor had recommended to eliminate all gifted and talented programs in New York City public schools. We felt that it was important for advocates of accelerated curriculum to find each other across the city, as most of these schools are really very disparate. So we created Place NYC, and we have a number of people across all over the city, really, certainly in Manhattan, many in District 2, where I think all of your schools are. I am in District 1 on the Lower East Side. So we've been doing a lot of work over the past year, and it's really about advocating for rigorous accelerated education that we think all students should have access to, and really expanding opportunities in these programs for as many families that really want these programs for their children. So I'll stop there, and I think it may be more helpful if I answer questions, or if there's anything particular you want me to speak on in terms of, what is going on regarding school admissions. So if that's, I can certainly focus my time in sharing what I know with you.
I just heard that it's for middle and for high school. So they're not touching the GNT for kindergarten. Is that staying the same?
No. So
yeah.
We've been watching the gifted and talented programs very closely. Annually, every year, the DOE provides a GNT test. Usually signups happen in the fall, and the testing actually happens in January. The test is is created by Pearson. The contract for the GNT testing expired last year. So in order to have the same testing done, the DOE had to renew that contract. We saw a glimpse of the renewal of the contract back in June of this year. It came on the PEP, which stands for the Panel of Education Policy. It came on their agenda, and really, I think the day before the meeting was pulled off. And this contract has not reappeared on the PEP agenda. Place has written to members of the PEP asking about this, and the reply was that they only review what the DOE puts forth. They don't have the authority to actually put specific contracts on, if that makes sense. So as far as we know, there is no contract for that testing. We have not heard anything about gifted and talented programs. The mayor, I think last fall, after the SDAG recommendation, had said that he was going to take this year to, figure it out and decide. And that's really where we stand. There's been no news about gifted and talented programs.
Got it.
How about the, because some of this is in the state, like Stuyvesant and Bronx Science, Brooklyn Tech, that's state mandated versus city mandated. What's going on with that?
Sure. The specialized high schools that are covered by the Heck-Calandra law passed in 1971 is what you're referring to, is state mandated as the sole criteria to be admitted to be offered a seat at the 3 specialized high schools. But there are 5 additional schools that were added, and those 5 schools also, so altogether there are 8 Shasat schools. We have not heard anything. The original high school guide had published test dates of November 7th and 8th, which was this past weekend. The DOE did inform parents that those dates were not valid. I believe it was a week or 2 ago. It's been very, very stressful for 8th grade families. Many students, their DOE programs, as well as prep centers that help prepare students to take this exam. They've been doing it for the past year, and kids and families really were relying on the test being given in the November timeframe. And as of today, we do not have a rescheduled test date.
I'm certainly very sorry to hear that, and it's completely unrelated. But my son is in 11th grade to try and take the SAT, and we showed up twice in New Jersey, 2 separate test days, and which it was on the website saying it was live, and showed up with hundreds of kids and even people from the school, but then the College Board people didn't show up twice.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
So,
I'll tell you, Wendy,
to this issue, but I think there's some sort of, something very, this whole testing thing is a disaster.
But I'll tell you something, Wendy. I have an 11th grader, and I'll tell you who's been having these tests and Horace Mann, all the private schools. Those are the ones you need to sign up for. Unfortunately, those are the ones that have not, they're the only ones that have been administering those tests. So again, I'll talk, but But again, just coming back, so the parents, and I know I have a lot of friends who are in 8th grade, and these kids have been working extremely hard since some of them 5th and 6th grade, and they have been left in limbo. So it's been very stressful for the kids, obviously the parents, but a lot of kids, it has been very, very extremely stressful. And they just need some resolution one way or the other.
Right, and they've been keeping parents and students in the dark. I'll tell you, one thing we did see today for high school is guidance counselors as well as parent coordinator have apparently received a flyer from the DOE. They're giving a series of high school admissions information sessions starting on Monday. I'm happy to send that to my contacts, but I'm sure you'll be getting it from the middle school guidance counselors as well as parent coordinators. But that was shared with me today. So I think it's
can you share it please with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have it on this particular, but I'll find it and send it to you. So given that they have these series of information sessions planned, I think they will make an announcement this week definitely about high school admissions, possibly about middle school admissions as well.
Thank you. Has there been any lawsuits brewing over this or not? Because I'm surprised I haven't heard about that.
There are parents talking about lawsuits, and I think there are parents that I know that are trying to fundraise so that they have the money to actually pursue the lawsuit. So that got started, I want to say, the beginning of last week. So I'm aware of one fundraiser for that. There may be others, but I know of one. And I think the parents that are doing this, and I know them, they are not going to relent until the test is given. They are very cynical. Even if the DOE announced test dates, there are still unknowns until the test is given. So yes, that is being pursued.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
I mean, we can share with you some of the advocacy we are doing around it. We've been doing this all summer. We've been doing this since, they announced that things were changing regarding screen schools since the spring. Right now, we have an email campaign being activated, asking everyone in our community to send an email to elected officials to advocate for the release of this information. So you can find all of this on the placenyc.org website. All of our campaigns are fairly public, and we're hoping that as many parents who support these programs, take the 2 minutes and send out the emails to our elected officials.
This is Andrew. I'm sorry if I missed it, but do we know if there's been any modification or revisions to the test content, given the impact to the learning environment over the past several months?
Are you referring to the SHSAT or a different test?
The testing that's used in this process for screen schools.
I can answer that, Andrew. It has not been modified.
Okay, thank you.
And a separate question is just obviously they've always been in these, like Stuyvesant has been the place where they've taken the SHSAT from Canton and this type of thing. What is where do you take it during a pandemic? Certainly there have been SATs being held, it sounds like, at private schools. I wouldn't know since we keep getting turned away at the door. But what is the thought process on the logistics? If the test actually happens, how would it get administered? Would it be in multiple buildings? Would it be in person? Would it be online? Like, what people think?
Right. So we know about the contract for SHSAT, and there's no provision for an online element of it. So I'm going to just park it on the side. We actually met with the DOE over the summer to to kind of make sure that they were thinking about all of the accommodations that would be needed for social distancing, given that we're in COVID. And they took our meeting. We met with enrollment as well as the group that's in charge of test assessments. There's a special unit in DOE that does that. And we talked through all of those suggestions in terms of spacing, more schools. I mean, looking at Stuyvesant and Brooklyn Tech, they actually do have a lot of space, even with the social distancing that you need. They brought a budget because if you separate kids into more classrooms, they would need additional proctors, and I think that was right around the time when the budgets were announced. So clearly that was top of mind. But they were, we definitely advocated for, using as many sites as necessary to give it. And there was discussion over spreading it to multiple weekends. Typically, it's done over 2 weekends. And if they do that, they may need multiple versions of the test, which is typically done with a lot of standardized testing. So those were discussed. What they actually come out with, we'll have to see. They have not announced that. But I think the plan is to have the test in person, assuming we don't shut down schools because of COVID.
And I forget, when do kids find out what, I just remember things being pretty late in terms of what you find out what high school and what middle school you're going to be in, like in terms of working backwards, how much time everything takes.
High school results, both the non-specialized high schools as well as the specialized high school results are given typically in the middle of March.
Yeah, I was thinking March and then May for middle schools, right?
Yeah, it's later.
Yes. Thinking of these things, they need to do it relatively soon.
Well, if they announce this week, along with any potential change, there will be changes, obviously, to the screening process. Just really don't know what they're thinking of. If they announce it this week, we anticipate the test will be given most likely in January. Because I think, the DOE has told parents that they would give parents adequate time to register and to prepare. So, with the holidays coming and then December being a shorter month, we're probably looking at January for the test to be given.
And how about what have we heard from LaGuardia and the other performing arts schools? Because obviously that's a very different, it's a whole different thing than taking a test one day.
Correct. I'm not as close to it. I believe those schools are posting information on their websites. It's probably very likely that those may be done by video. But I think you have to check with the different audition schools. The last I've heard, they haven't given any specificity to audition schools either.
It would just be a great shame to lose all these wonderful things.
Absolutely, I'm in total agreement with you.
Yeah, the diversity of our million plus school children, in terms of the types of schools that are out there, especially on the high school level, is one of the great things about New York.
I totally agree with you. We have over 400 high schools. There are 8 testing schools. There are a number of really top-notch audition schools, performing arts schools. We've got wonderful CTE schools. I think it's part of the reason why families choose to live in New York City.
Well, there's, I won't, like I said, I didn't want to get into the weeds too much with this, but we also have the most segregated school system, urban school system. So I know this is why we're under a lot of review in terms of our screens. And I would like to have this discussion, but I think it's best had with more representation. But I just want to say that is why the mayor and the chancellor that's part of the reasons they're making this decision. Part of it is during COVID, they feel as though there are people that even have less advantages because of this situation, but they had already started moving on talking about dropping the SAT test, as you all know. And then they're under a lot of pressure to review and potentially drop screens because of the perceived connection to segregation. So, you know, this is a big discussion. It's obviously a very charged one. And before we weigh in on a community-based level, I thought that maybe we could come together with a couple more community boards and the CEC for that larger discussion. But, you know, with that said, Yatin, I do think that in terms, I was shocked, even though I wasn't shocked about hearing the conversations about screen schools in general and about what the future of them is and the ongoing discussions of how we might be able to, as a city, desegregate our schools without throwing out the things that parents love most about our schools. They surprised us with the comment the other day that they want to implement this immediately. So that, I think, as a community board, is something that we should be weighing in on. One of the most important things in my view, and this is up for discussion now as we move into this resolution that Jeff is developing for us, is if in fact they feel this way about the screen schools, then I would think it would be very important to have a plan B fully in place, something that ensures that we will not lose everything that we build. In other words, we need to be building up here and not dropping out. And I think my hopes for any change in the screening process was that the Department of Education would develop a robust replacement, transformation, appendage to the system that we have in place. And what I'm understanding about this initiative to drop the screens for the fall of 2021, that is not in place. There is no safety net. It sounds like a 0 to 100 change, and we would like to write a resolution tonight that is focusing on that, leaving out the parts of whether or not we believe in screen schools as parents. Because I think, again, that discussion is a lengthier one. It would be very hard for us to arrive at those points alone. It's a citywide issue, but I do think we should weigh in on next fall. So I would like to just open that up for discussion in our group. We can continue asking Yatin questions if you like, but I'd like to move towards this resolution now in developing it.
I've written the resolution and I can share my screen if people want.
Hey, Jeff, could you read it actually? Because it's just hard to, I'm on my phone.
The only thing I will say, Jeff, is that there are points in the resolution that you brought to us tonight. I didn't have a chance to review it with you. The only thing I would say is, to the point that I opened this part of the meeting to, I think it would be important that we try to avoid points about the effectiveness, the success of the schools, until such time that we can, as a community board and as a district really, really come together with bringing all of those points about screen schools into a resolution about screen schools. I think for this one, we had agreed that we're going to focus on just saying changing any school model with this little notice, one that's been in place for 30 years, is unacceptable, especially without a plan B in place. So if you're okay with that modification of that whereas that talks about the effectiveness of screen schools, I think your points are excellent, and that would be the only feedback I have on it.
All right, let me digest that a little bit because I do feel like it is a factual point that the screen schools have higher attendance, better GPAs, and higher graduation rates. So let's just sleep on that for a second, if you don't mind, and I can read through the other ones. So,
I also think that I think that, diversity is an important thing, but I have to bring up again, Columbia Secondary, where my son attends in Harlem, is the model of a screen school where it has, incredibly high diversity, incredibly high skill set. And, in my case, I was looking for a school for a kid who just wants to be an engineer in life and doesn't want to go to one of the specialty schools because his sisters went there. It's too much homework. It took a long time to find that school, but it's out there.
Yes, but
we can just stay focused. So to repeat, the point of this is a very clean resolution. Trish and I talked about it yesterday, and it's basically just saying now is not the time to make a sweeping policy change. That's all this is saying.
Okay.
So I'm just going to run through it for you. It says, regarding the New York City DOE's consideration of ending all screen schools as a policy decision in the midst of a global pandemic. That's the regarding. Whereas we are in the midst of the first global pandemic since 1918, and our city has been particularly hard hit, and infection rates are rising and now stand at 2.3%, with many aggressive measures, including making all schools go remote, kicking in at 3%. And whereas, as NPR reported on September 27, 2020, quote, the executive board of the union representing more than 6,400 of New York City's school leaders passed a unanimous vote of no confidence against Mayor Bill de Blasio and Schools Chancellor Richard Carranza on Sunday for what it called officials, quote, failure to lead New York City through the safe and successful reopening of schools, end quote. This is an unprecedented move by the leaders of the city schools and shows how little faith our mayor and chancellor have to make decisions on behalf of our city's 1.1 million students and roughly 70,000 teachers. And whereas 15% of New York City families have students in screen schools for a total of roughly, just making some fixes here that I'll send you, Jennifer, for a total of roughly 165,000 young people, and any move to change this option for those families would be absolutely life-changing and would result in massive disruption to these students and their families. And whereas the effectiveness of screen schools as measured by attendance, GPAs, and graduation rates is highly impressive, that one's in doubt. And whereas due to COVID-19, it is impossible to have public forums that would allow for a full and complete consideration and weighing of public opinion on a policy change with such radical implications for the lives of so many students and families. And whereas the mayor is in the last year of his second term and is term limited, and a new mayor is more than likely to name a new chancellor, meaning that both office holders have limited accountability to the electorate, therefore be it resolved that Community Board Number 1 calls on the mayor, chancellor, and NYC DOE to abandon any long-term or wide-ranging plan to end screen schools in New York City until after the city has moved out of the shadow of COVID-19 and a new mayor is elected. And therefore, it be further resolved that Community Board 1 calls on the mayor, chancellor, and NYC DOE to develop a plan for admissions for the 2021-22 school year within this calendar year, preferably by December 1st, so that New York City families are served by the largest public school system in America. That's it. It's just saying now is not the time to make a change to anything about screens. Get your plan together for next year, and we'll talk about the longer-term plan when there's a newly elected mayor that's accountable to the electorate. You're not sneaking something through to editorialize for a moment, which is what they're doing. And that there's been a chance for people to really face each other and have a conversation. Many people will choose not to come to these Zoom meetings because we're exhausted from doing Zoom all day. Now is not the time to use Zoom meetings or WebEx meetings to decide policy when we're all holed up in our homes just trying to survive. That's it.
Well done, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. It's really well done, and I appreciate it.
So let me just I'll just drop the one you want me to drop. I'll drop the effectiveness part if you really insist on it. I think it is a fact, but there's enough other stuff.
It is a fact, but the problem is I don't want them to throw it out. The discussion right now is such a big one about people talking about the success of the schools because of their focus on how segregated the schools are. I just think it's
Yeah,
like
I
a
hear
hot
that.
iron.
I think
that
that's
we
good.
should just,
I'm just cutting it. I'm getting it out of there.
okay.
So it's gone.
And
And
then
I'll
I'm
send,
wondering,
Jennifer, I'll send you whatever we vote on. I'll send you. Sorry, go ahead.
in your whereas, Jeff, that starts with as NPR, I'm wondering if there's a way to say, to focus on the failure of the mayor and the chancellor when it comes to what's appropriate here is that the time they need to plan. And I certainly think that, because I think this is a little confusing and that not everybody understands that, you know, this is about, you know, the fact that they went ahead without the a full discussion with the teachers union about how blended learning was actually going to happen. And I think that, is there a way to say this where we can just focus on, you know, what just happened with the safe reopening of schools, the fact that schools were unable to open on time because the DOE and the chancellor and the mayor were unable to do the thing that they said they were able to do by the time came for school to open. I think that like could be a really good argument here in that they say something, but they have no plan. And then maybe circle back to that at the end of the resolution with another, therefore be it resolved, that any change to admissions methods needs to be made only when through thorough vetting like you have here, but with a fail-proof plan in place. That would be the only thing I would recommend, and then I'll open it up for discussion with everybody else.
Yeah, Trisha, this is Dennis. I don't know if I can be heard because I'm on my phone.
We can hear you well.
You can.
Okay, good, thank you.
Crystal clear.
Exactly.
You must have a good plan.
I was just going to say that we need to say something about that this has been a pattern now of the mayor and the chancellor, like what you just said, Trisha, about that they have just come up with these policies or plans and they just put them out there and then there's no follow through and other people have to kind of pick up the pieces after them. And this is just not the time. And we've seen the failure so far. So, I mean, I would say something about that this is a pattern that they do not involve the community in the decisions. That have they really involved the communities in these decisions, or is this just something that both of them want? So, like Jeff said, like
that's excellent.
A lot of people are not going to these, even if they would open it up. They need to provide more opportunity for parents to be able to have a say in this, and this is not the time to do it. So it's a
That's perfect. Thank you. Did you get that, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm writing stuff as people talk. I'm kind of combining what Dennis said with what you said. I'll tell you when I'm done, but keep going.
Okay. Anyone else?
Do you have any sense of how enrollment has been? I mean, have people pulled out and left the city entirely?
I have to say, to keep us focused, I don't think that really relates to this. I mean, unless you want to make that argument that it does, I want to really keep us focused. I'm exhausted from being on Zoom today, so I don't know what that would have to do with this resolution.
As it is, but I think it is related because I think for people who are happy that, you know, that they want to go to a high achieving school or a focus, that they will just, you know, I mean, some people will move for their kids' education. That is, you know, very important. It might not be relevant for this. I think
we're trying to keep this super clean. We're not making a judgment about whether screen schools are good or not for this. That's something Trish and I really strategized on. It's just now is not the time to change a policy. People can't weigh in.
Short and sweet makes sense. Okay.
Thanks. Sorry if didn't mean to be.
No, I think it's fine for the resolution, but and we can talk about it.
You're making a good point. Yeah.
I do think that it's an issue that you know.
For sure.
About at some point.
For sure. It's a good point. I'm just trying to keep
I get it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Does anybody know if at any point did the mayor or the chancellor talk about that schools can individually do their own tests? Was that even something that was ever brought up or nothing?
About the tests for this next year?
Just like a screening test, like saying we'll leave it to, it's not going to be across, it's going to be per school. Was that something?
No, it was just, all they have said so far is that they've had a lot of pressure from different CECs, ours included, about ending screens because of a million reasons. Lack of access for some of our most in-need students. They feel as though this has been especially difficult for people, and that the screened admissions process is going to exacerbate those issues. And again, I think that for us, I think all of the points on both sides of this argument are valid and are worthy of a lengthy discussion. But I think you can't, if you go and change something with this kind of notice with no plan, and we're going to be in the same situation we were when we tried to go back to school before they had checked the buildings, made sure they had enough teachers. You know what I mean? It's like, we can't even get to that part of the discussion, Sarah, because they haven't even thought that far. There's absolutely no content, as far as I was able to find today, in terms of what their plan was. They didn't even talk about testing. They didn't talk about anything. They're just in a reactive state to the demands that they're receiving. And that's, I always find it's a terrible place to make a good decision from.
Thank you.
So if nobody has any questions, Jeff will add Dennis's point, which was a great one. And we can vote, because I see Darren has to leave.
So Dennis, what I wrote was, and I'm not sure where I'll put it, I'll work on that, but I wrote, the New York City DOE, under the leadership of Mayor Bill de Blasio and Chancellor Richard Carranza, failed to prepare for the reopening of schools in the fall and have continued to push through policies and policy changes with little or no input from the public or even school leadership and teachers, including delaying guidelines for admissions for the 2021-22 school year and changing the policy of students opting into blended learning at various dates throughout the year, telling families that November 15th, 2020 is their last opportunity. I hear what Dennis is saying about a pattern, but rather than saying that word, I just wanted to give two examples of glaring policy shifts. Does that work for you, Dennis?
Yes, that works.
I didn't hear it, Jeff. I'm so sorry.
I'm just pointing out that I'm just saying that, I just point out your point, which is that they failed at the reopening preparation, and then Dennis's point that they've had a pattern of making policy changes and shifts without stakeholders' involvement, including, I gave two examples. One, we still have no guidelines or admissions for how to admit kids for next year. And two, they just all of a sudden decided November 15th is it. If you want your kid in schools, November 15th is your date. If you don't, you're done. It was going to be every month you'd have a chance to come back in. They just made that policy overnight,
right?
Announced it in the media, and every family's like, what? You know, so
right.
That to me gets to Dennis's point of a pattern of kind of bad policy making.
Right.
And then you wanted me to circle back around and add another resolve saying that these aren't the guys to be making these choices, in effect.
Let me see. We might not need it now. Let me.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's keep it. Right now, it just says, don't make any big plans. That's the first one. And the second one is make a plan for admitting kids for next year. That's your job right now. And we just heard about that from our participant talking about from Place. And she you know, hopefully we're going to know soon how they're going to admit kids, but my principal still doesn't know. So that's it. Just keep it super clean.
The only problem I have with that, Jeff, is you're asking them to develop a plan for admissions. By saying that we don't want them to change the structure of the schools.
Okay.
Shouldn't we be asking for them to resume that process?
Yeah, great point.
They have a process in place. Sorry.
So now it's community board number one. This is the last point of the whole resolution. calls on the mayor, chancellor, and NYC DOE to develop a plan for admissions that includes screening schools to the 2021-22 school year within this calendar year, preferably by December 1st, so that New York City families are better served by the largest public school system in America. That's it. Okay?
I'm sorry. I sorry to ask for this clarification, but I'm not sure I've followed. So have we just, with Trisha's comments, have we landed on, we're asking them to retain the admissions program or policy that has applied pre-COVID to remain status
Yes.
quo? Is that where we landed?
Yes. Can you guys see my screen now? Is it the right thing I'm sharing with you, or am I sharing my grade book with you right now? Is it a Microsoft document on your screen right now, folks?
Yeah, if we
No.
can make it larger, yes.
Yeah. It's your bank statement, Jeff. Bank accounts.
Okay, great. Get my routing numbers down, everybody. Hurry up. Screenshots. So this is it. I mean, I think this large one here that I'm highlighting that Dennis and you, Trisha, inspired could maybe move up. Here.
You still have the NPR thing there, Jeff.
I'm gonna fix that one a little bit. I don't want to do that. I was focusing on writing this rather than fixing. I still want to include that the principals union voted for a no confidence vote. That is unprecedented. That needs to be one of our main points.
Right.
So the leaders of your system don't trust you. Unanimous vote.
Yes,
So,
I mean, I agree with you,
I'll
except
fix
I
the
worry
wording.
worry about the position of the union. I think we could focus on the failures outside of that ganging up on thing. I think it's probably, we can make as big of a point there, I think, by just calling out what happened instead of quoting the union. I think that would just be probably a more effective way to say exactly the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll cut the quote if you like, but I don't want to cut the point that the unprecedented move by the teacher, by the New York City's teachers. It's not the teachers union. It's the schools leaders union. That needs to be one of our points. That's never happened. 6,400 school leaders got together and unanimously voted to say we don't have confidence in this mayor or chancellor. That's a big deal, and that should be one of our points. Saying these people aren't the ones who are making these choices for us. So I'd really like to keep that.
A quick question.
How does everybody else feel about that?
I agree that
Andrew?
that should definitely be in there.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
It makes sense.
I'll
I think
speak-
being
Did you wanna say
strong
something?
makes sense.
Sarah, your hand's up. Did you have something to say?
Oh, no,
Chantel?
I liked that. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Okay,
Trisha,
great.
can you hear me?
I can.
We have an attendee from the list. She's a public member on CB1, Zeta Al. She's asked if she can be moved to panelist.
Sure. Does she have a question on this item?
Let me unmute her.
While we're bringing her in, quick question. Is it the case, as we're having this discussion tonight, do we think it's the case that the DOE does not have a plan, or that they have not communicated the plan?
So I did some digging today, and I don't see any plan. Now, if I were to call the mayor's office and get him on the phone, he might tell me he has a plan, but this is part of the problem, is that they have publicized that they are moving to remove screens for next year without publicizing what the plan B is. And I think this is what I wanted to call attention to, is that, you know, we may submit this resolution and they may get back to us and say, well, you just didn't know the plan. But the lack of transparency and the way that the chancellor announced blended learning is a great example. It was exactly the same as what's happening here, which is why I like that as a whereas, is because they announce something and they say they have a plan, but it's actually not a plan at all. And they're reacting to the demands of New York City families, the ones that are vocal. and we do have the silent majority really when it comes to the families of school children in this city. We've found that before. There's always a handful of vocal parents, but really on something like this, it affects the lives of so many people who don't get a chance to weigh in. And that decision to do blended learning that he announced that day, he said he had talked to the teachers and he hadn't. And he had not inspected all the buildings and he wasn't capable of inspecting all the buildings. And so that's why I felt it was prudent to move ahead. If I wasn't able to find anything today on my own, then I felt it was prudent to move ahead with this because I don't think there is anything, to be honest.
Got it.
And
Thank you.
And it's a little bit of an arrogance that, this is what the new chancellor coming in, that his plan all along was to eliminate a lot of these things.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we can say that it's the arrogance of using COVID to get what he wanted all along. And to Trisha's point, without engaging parents, to me, it's, and, especially when the teachers and the principals have had such a terrible time. I think it's just not the right time. It's embarrassing how they've handled things. That's what it's really been. It's been embarrassing.
Let's not forget that he literally was quoted. He's quoted in the media as saying, "Don't let any good crisis go to waste when you're trying to make policy changes." He literally said that in the media.
Yeah.
That's a quote you can find. It's not hearsay. That's pretty weird.
No, it's concerning. It's concerning because he's acting. This is I will say this much about this. It's a very divided issue, right? We have a large population that wants to keep things as is, and we have a large population that wants to change it. And whenever you're faced with a situation like that, it is a call to take your time with it and to reach out thoroughly and make sure all voices are heard in the democracy. And this took 30 years to break, and there was a reason they created these schools. We have to we have to revisit that. We have to evaluate that. We have to talk to our teachers, our families, and we have to do outreach to the families that don't have a voice. And it has to be one of the most carefully thought out decisions that will ever be made in the city of New York in terms of educational models. I'm really concerned about this ramming through, and I think it's the wrong thing to do.
I would just simply say, adding to that on top of all that good stuff you just said, it's also going to be the case that whoever's running for mayor will have to take a stand on this, and that's how it can be decided most democratically. So, should we move along? And can I ask to call the question on my own resolution, or is that illegal?
I was
No, you can do that.
Oh,
wait,
sorry. Go ahead.
Vendetta, would you like to say
Yeah,
something?
hi. Yeah, well, just I can't read what he put on the screen because my screen doesn't enlarge that much, but just to make sure that sorry, my something weird. Just to make sure that you're saying two different things. You're saying resurrect the same system that's been in place for the current year, and that if you're going to make a plan for the future, make that plan, start to develop that plan. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear in the wording that you're saying those two different things. And also in that, I think it was your second whereas clause. Wondered if you could reread it, because I just heard something in the phrasing that didn't sound as clear as it could be. The one was you saying about that the mayor and the chancellor don't have like the faith of the city behind them.
So I've changed that based upon Trish's feedback, and it now reads, whereas the union representing more than 6,400 of New York City school leaders passed a unanimous vote of no confidence against Mayor Bill de Blasio and schools chancellor Richard Carranza in late September 2020, an unprecedented move by the leaders of the city schools that shows how little faith our city school leaders have in the mayor and chancellor to make decisions on behalf of our city's 1.1 million students and roughly 70,000 teachers. That's it.
Did you have a whereas clause though that you read even before that?
I got rid of the one that quotes NPR. This one used to quote NPR. Now it just gives the facts.
Okay. Okay.
The first whereas is about the pandemic, and the numbers. The second whereas is about the union of the leaders. The third whereas is the one that we just wrote in this meeting about making policy changes without enough feedback. The next one is about.
Yeah, I think you already corrected the one where I had heard some difficult wording. Okay.
Yeah.
And Detta, I heard what you said about resurrecting. They haven't.
Well, that was just my phrasing.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure. We're just asking for no change.
We're asking for what it's always been.
Right. Well, keeping it in place, but it just sounds like he's really trying to dismantle it.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeff, in that whereas where you cite the union vote, how strongly do you feel you need the language after that factual statement? So the first part of that whereas is reference to a vote of no confidence.
This one?
I can't see it either. Apologies.
Oh.
The one where you read that, you know, the vote, lack of vote of no confidence.
What's the question, Andrew?
How strongly do you feel you need the language that follows that statement that there was a vote of no confidence? It just sounds really, to me, it sounds very aggressive and confrontational.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning is, you know, I think we can be strong without saying vote of no confidence, because really this is coming from the community board. And I think we can make the same point by describing what happened with the last time they tried to do something like this. And it would show the lack of confidence we have in them without saying something so aggressive. That's all.
Well, I think we talked. I'll answer the question. I feel strongly that it should be there, and I think we've already discussed this. And another number of other voices weighed in, said they thought it should be there as well. I think, you know, labor matters, and if a labor union gets together and makes an unprecedented move to vote unanimously no confidence, that should be honored in public documents that reference who these policymakers are, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was okay with the first part of that, whereas it was the language that followed the reference to the fact that there was a vote, or however you framed it. But look, if the group
so
is
you want to leave that the union representing more than 6,400 New York City's school leaders passed a unanimous vote of no confidence against Mayor Bill de Blasio and schools chancellor Richard Carranza in late September 2020. And maybe you're suggesting it then just says an unprecedented move by the leaders of the city schools, and stop there.
Yes. I was asking if you felt strongly that could stand on its own without
I'm okay stopping it there, but Dennis, what do you think? Can you see what's on the screen? Because you also felt that do others think, if people can see my screen, I'm showing you where.
Yeah, the only reason that
everything highlighted right now is being possibly cut based upon what we're hearing. Dennis, go ahead. Sorry.
As long as that's not wording from what the CSA said, then I think that it's fine to take it out.
Okay. So I'm going to hit delete.
Okay.
So now it just ends with an unprecedented move by the leaders of the city schools. So it's pointing out that it's unprecedented. I do want to maintain that. It's unprecedented.
Okay. Fair enough.
But it's not. But I took out the harsh part about shows how little faith they have, yada yada. It speaks for itself.
Yeah, I think yes.
But I do want a record of that vote as part of this document, because it's significant that 6,400 people who are on the front line, who are the generals, if you will, are saying we don't have faith in these people. But those people that get that kind of vote should be making sweeping policies that are 30 to 40 years old, in my view. That's it. So can we call the question?
This is Judy. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I just have one more thought. In the second to last, therefore be it resolved. Do we want to take out the word long term? Because my fear is, are we saying that we're okay with changing something in the short term, and then it's like a bait and switch, and we're changing it for 2020, 2022, and then it just kind of never goes back. So just a thought. I don't feel strongly about it, but it sort of suggests that we're okay with a short-term plan to take away the screen schools.
Well, the second resolve now reads, thanks to someone pointing out that the second one addresses that we want it the way it is now. That's the point of the second one, Judith. And the first one's to say, don't even think about long-term right now. Let's just get through this year.
Yeah.
So I think
I would say the same. If we can drop the long term, because that's going to be a trigger.
Why would we do that? I don't understand what's being said here. To abandon and
So again, I just don't want to be misunderstood by saying that we never want to change the school system the way it is. And the more we can do to just avoid those hot topics on this, the more successful we'll be in getting this to happen, in my view.
Well, I think it's important that we say that we don't want them making a long-term plan change right now. That's essential to me. It's not just.
Right, but we don't want a short-term. I guess my point is we don't want a short-term plan right now either. So I don't know if.
Exactly.
The second one addresses that. It says to develop a plan for admissions that includes screen schools. The second one addresses that.
I think it might be a bit confusing the way we have it. That's all I'm saying. Someone might say, "Oh, you're okay with the short-term plan." I hear you. The second one clarifies it to some degree, but I just don't think we need long-term in there. Or, yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Yes, that's much better.
And I want to add this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, love it.
All right, so let's do it, guys. Calling the question. Jennifer, is this where you come in? Should I stop sharing?
Yeah, you can stop sharing. If someone can call a question. Oh, you already did that. Someone second.
I called it. Anyone want to second it?
Second it.
Second.
All right.
Trisha, do you want me to go ahead and do a roll call, or just kind of who's in favor, who's not, all together? Or
we have a lot of people with no cameras, so I think we should do roll call.
Okay.
Well, couldn't we just say if you're opposed, speak up? Otherwise, we assume. I don't know. So is that not faster?
Either way.
So is anybody opposed to this?
If you can hear, it might be difficult.
Zelter abstain.
Anyone else abstain or against it?
I still have a little bit of problem with that second whereas, but I am concerned, Jeff, about saying no confidence in. They might be the ones making this decision next time. We don't know when this decision will be made, and we might not want to prevent them from making a good decision on something that follows COVID. That's the one thing that's sticking with me, that's all.
All it's saying is they've already had a vote of no confidence in them from the school leaders. To me, there's consequences for not leading well, and that's what this is pointing out. I really feel strongly it needs to be there.
They're still going to have to lead until they're out of business. out of office. And so, what is that saying?
This isn't saying.
Trisha, I think it should be included because part of it is that.
And also, the question's been called and seconded, so I hate to say it, but it's already up there.
Yeah, I actually think I would support it because it's just a fact.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just feel like that needs to be in there. And we've already voted, so.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll just do a vote once more. Also, anyone in favor?
So
anyone?
The resolution.
Okay.
We can all put our hands up if we're in favor. People can hear. Hands up means you're in favor. And then Andrew's abstaining. Put a hand up if you're in favor. That way it's a full vote. It's just like a roll call, but we can use hands.
Or if you can speak yes, and I'll count that as you're in favor of the resolution. Anyone opposed?
We're waiting on Judith, I think. Are you there, Judith?
Yes, I'm voting yes. Sorry about that.
Okay.
And Rosa, I don't see yours either.
Oh, I can't
Are you
vote
with us?
because I'm not on this committee.
Oh, right. Okay.
Castle, are you there with us?
Vote yeah.
Okay.
She's got her hand up.
Sorry, I missed Dennis.
He's got his hand up.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect.
So
Okay, so this resolution passes.
and you have Andrew as
All right.
abstaining, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you. I think that is, I did tell you that I weighed in on the budget items. Jen, do you have those written for us to share?
I do. Would you want me to share my screen and just so everyone can see?
Yeah, just so everybody can, yes, please. Thanks.
Okay. One moment.
And Tricia, are we going to talk about construction of the public library, or is that going to another time? Or
I'm not prepared to talk about that. I hadn't put it on tonight. Is there something that you had wanted to say, Jen, or someone had wanted to talk about?
Oh, it was just a brief update from Amir Nob from he came to last month's meeting. Just to recap that the New York Public Library is planning to reopen the Battery Park City branch during their phase 2 of the reopening, but that's not going to happen until later on in the fall. They don't have an exact time frame, like an exact date. So he's going to give us an update as he gets more information.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just pull this up on the screen.
Just quickly, while Jen's bringing up the budget items, I did want to quickly come back to Governor's Island and the proposed rezoning. I think it'd be helpful if members of this committee took a look at some of the materials and understood what's being proposed, not so much from the development perspective, but the genesis of this is to bring revenue to the trust to enable them to really complete the build out of Governor's Island. And a lot of that build out is very pertinent and relevant to the youth of our community. So I think this committee, at least having an understanding and having some context when it comes before the full board will be helpful. If this proceeds and the money does come to the trust, Governor's Island becomes more of an attraction to the youth in our communities.
Okay, great. I think that's a great idea. And do you know the time? When is this coming before, did you say?
Resolution will come to the full committee in December.
Okay.
And I can circulate to this group. The recording of the meetings is 3+ hours and it can be painful, but there's a presentation to work through and selectively pull out information that will better inform everyone. So I can circulate the presentation regarding that.
That's great, Andrew. I really appreciate that. That would be wonderful for us to have and weigh in on in December.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
So this is the budget issues. For those of you who want to read through it, Jen can also send it to you. I don't think there'll be any surprises here. A lot of them were continuations, sadly, from last year. But really, the overall theme is to make sure that everything we have in place stays on track and stays funded. I also had, she's rolling through here, I'm saying I also reiterated the after-school programs because that's not a given anymore. So I had made sure that we maintain support for them and community sports. and leagues, even though they might not be happening at this particular moment. I do think it's important that we continue pushing for this gym, because we have the money. It's just sitting there. Anybody have any questions?
Hi,
I
this is
also brought
Rosa.
up the elevators at 75 Broad and 81 New Street. They are in dire need of repair.
I had a question regarding field space. What constitutes field space?
Andrew, you'd probably be better at explaining that. It doesn't have to be like the ball fields. It can be a small-ish space, but it's about the allocation of space for youth.
Does it have to be like turf or grass?
No, I think oftentimes we overcomplicate our reference to ball fields. I think it's somewhat location centric. There are certainly locations where it's large enough for full-size, multi-dimension, year-round field, which almost by definition means turf. Then you have designated areas like Rockefeller Park and Battery Park, which is just a somewhat large, open grass space that for certain periods of time on the weekends can be allocated for organized activities through youth programs.
Okay.
So perhaps identifying where we have such locations that perhaps previously have not been considered for that purpose, being able to be used in that manner.
Okay, I would like to invite everybody from the Youth and Ed Committee to the next waterfront meeting on the 17th, because we are inviting DOT and NYPD to come and explain to us what they are doing with all of that land under the Brooklyn Bridge. And one of the things that we want to do there is create flexible, open play space, or just public space that can be used in a variety of ways. And one of the ways that I think it would be perfect would actually be as field space, if that is, if I have the correct understanding of field space. I was thinking more for like biking or ball sports or other things, and it's sort of protected because it's under the Brooklyn Bridge. And there's a wider swath of open space that's more towards the FDR side. Anyways, just wanted to bring
That
that
would be great. I'm having a hard time seeing that. Is anybody else familiar with that space?
It's a really bizarre space. I mean, it comes in I guess 3 sort of blocks adjacent to each other. So it spans pretty much from the FDR all the way towards Center Street. And there are a bunch of different parts to it. You know, some of it that apparently was an iconic skateboarding area known around the world. And you know, these beautiful vault spaces that are currently being renovated.
Yeah.
But essentially being used as a DOT parking lot, which is just, you know, criminally wrong. So I'm basically trying to make a land grab because it's publicly owned land, and I don't see why it can't be public enjoyment space.
Andrew, do you happen to know if the Pier 26 new courts there are going to be permitted, or are they just going to be whoever gets there first?
Question. There has been discussion about trying to find a balance between permitted time and time for just come on out and it's open play. And I'm pretty sure that's where we'll land, that there will be hours that will be permitted for organized activities, and then periods of the afternoons and weekends where it will be available for open play. So I think the answer is going to be both.
And one other point, if could we see that document one more time, whoever was sharing that? I'm a little concerned about one item on it. Is it too late? Is this already a public document? Hello?
I'll share it once more. No, it's not yet a public document.
I think Tricia would agree with me on this one too. There's something in there that says about either adding or expanding a high school in our community.
Yes.
And I'm really scared about that wording, because one of the biggest things that, you know, that I know that you fought harder for than almost anyone, Tricia, was that Millennium would, and Colin as well, our principal, that Millennium would not get a new floor plus add students, because the whole point of the new floor is to take down the crowding of the school. It's extremely crowded.
Yes.
And the way it's worded now in that one spot, if we can scroll to it, if we can scroll down a little bit, Jennifer.
Yes, you know
ahead.
what, Jeff, that's fine. Since that's not a done deal, it's fine. We can take expand out.
It just says right there,
That's a
yeah,
good-
just that. You can see my concern. Oh yeah, let's expand Millennium.
Yes.
It's in the same sentence almost. It's like the next word, you know? And that's, I don't want any
Yes,
suggestion of
that's fine.
that. Thank you.
Yes. We'll kill that. It was written after that was a done deal, but it definitely was, it's not done yet, so let's take that out. All right, anyone else? No? All right, I think that's everything, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks
I
all.
appreciate
Bye,
everybody's
everybody.
comments.
Thank you. Jennifer,
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
you there, Jennifer?
I'm
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you all.
Jennifer, I'm going to send you the version we just fixed of that document, okay? Of the
Okay, perfect.
I'll send it to you right now.
Gotcha.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Taylin.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
It's my student right there.
Oh, wow.
He's a star. Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.